There's a feeling that comes with sealing a barrel of whiskey. After the grind, the heat, the noise, everything quiets. The spirit rests in oak, still warm from the fire, and for the first time, there's nothing more to do. The work is done. The outcome, well, that's out of your hands. You close the lid, mark the date, and roll the barrel into the rickhouse, trusting that time will do what time does. And that's where the waiting begins. Every distiller feels it, that mix of pride and patience, of hope and surrender. The belief that what's being created today will meet the world someday, just as it was envisioned. But years pass. The world changes. Markets shift. And when those barrels are finally ready to open, the world waiting on the other side isn't the same as the one you imagined. The taste is still good, maybe even better, but the conditions have changed. The plans, the projections, the demand, all different now. And in that moment, the barrel becomes a mirror. Because leaders feel it too. The season we planned for isn't the one that we're standing in. What we built in certainty is being tested by change. Like the distillers, we're realizing the work goes beyond what we make. It's in how we lead through change. In this episode of Crafted Clarity, we'll talk about what happens when the good years run dry and what remains when they do. There's something about the moment a whiskey is barreled. It's full of confidence and anticipation. The grain is sourced, the spirit distilled, and each barrel filled with faith that what's created today will one day meet the world just as it was envisioned. In that moment, everything feels certain. The plan is clear, the path steady. There's a sense of order and purpose and momentum. Whiskey making, like leadership, is built on time. And as we know all too well, time always moves. What's barreled in one season may meet a completely different world when it's finally ready. That's the paradox. We plan, prepare, and build based on what we know now, only to discover that by the time it all comes to fruition, the world has changed. Markets shift, priorities evolve, organizations change, and sometimes even those leading the work have changed too. For leaders seeking significance, it's possible for everything to look strong on paper. The business, the strategy, the results, yet they still feel a quiet restlessness beneath the surface. A sense that what's been built may no longer align with what truly matters. The question isn't whether those shifts will happen. We know that they will. The real question is, how do we posture ourselves when they do? Because leadership, just like whiskey, isn't about controlling the seasons. It's about learning to work within them. Inside every rickhouse, the temperature and humidity are constantly shifting. But those variations are actually what give the whiskey its depth and distinction. Neither the distillers nor the whiskey resist the change. In fact, they rely on it. Those swings are what shape the spirit into what it's meant to become. And maybe that's true for us. Quietly beneath the surface, we're being shaped by seasons we can't control. I'm Steve Muscato, and this is Crafted Clarity, where we distill the tension between what we've built and what we're built for. Here we use the metaphors of whiskey to explore life and leadership and our shared pursuit of significance, because clarity isn't something we find, it's something we distill. So that last lesson about unexpected and dramatic change is playing out right now in the whiskey world. Let's rewind a bit. It was just a few short years ago during the pandemic when life slowed down. People stayed at home, found new rhythms, They even learned how to bake bread. And they rediscovered, or perhaps discovered for the first time, small things that made them feel connected and even joyful. And somewhere in that pause, many found whiskey. It became a symbol of patience and presence, something steady when everything else felt uncertain. Whiskey demand soared, prices climbed. Established distilleries expanded, and new craft brands emerged. It was a boom, the kind the industry hadn't seen in decades. Aficionados and newcomers alike lined up for allocated bottles, which are limited releases, often from single barrels that are designed to create excitement and a bit of healthy scarcity. And for a while, it worked beautifully. Whiskey became the story of the moment. But the reality is, whiskey moves slower than the world around it. And that's by design. It takes years, sometimes even decades, for what's barreled to reach its best. As those barrels aged, the world outside kept shifting. The economy tightened. Raw material and labor costs rose. Now, tariffs are hitting exports and testing trade partnerships. And those new whiskey fans, the ones who fueled the boom, well, they've moved on to the next trend in spirits. According to Whisky Advocate, whiskey production in the U.S. has fallen nearly 30% since 2019. Both young craft labels and heritage brands who have generations of history have been forced to cut operations or file for bankruptcy protection, not because they lost their way, but because the world changed faster than their processes could. It's a reminder that even the best laid plans can meet seasons they weren't built for. And that's not just a whiskey story. That's a leadership story. Because whether it's tariffs or talent, budgets or burnout, leaders everywhere are realizing the same truth. We can't control the conditions, but we can choose our posture within them. While the years when things were good may have allowed us to build something strong, the season we're in could be asking for something deeper. Our plans are in place, strategies are set, teams are built, but the environment around us, around them, remains uncertain. For some, it's the economy. For others, it's shifting priorities or cultural fatigue, or the sense that what worked before just isn't working anymore. Whatever form it takes, the pressure is real, and it's shaping the work in ways that can feel uncomfortable. But discomfort doesn't mean decline. It means refinement. Those barrels in the rickhouse are still good, and so is your leadership. The work still matters. This isn't about giving up or starting over. It's about steadying what's already in motion. When we think about whiskey making, we know the spirit doesn't resist the change. It embraces it. It's those unpredictable swings in the environment that bring out the richness and the character. Those same unpredictable swings also test and deepen a leader's resolve and their values and their purpose. The season we're in right now, as leaders and organizations, might be doing more for our character and clarity than any easy season ever could. The tension we feel, the uncertainty, the fatigue, might not be pressure to fix what's wrong, but an invitation to rediscover what's right. So maybe this isn't a setback. Maybe this is your season of refinement. Every leader eventually faces a moment like this when skill and strategy just aren't enough. What was working before isn't working now. The clarity they once had and that once came easily now feels elusive. That's when great leaders shift their focus from what they do to who they are. This kind of leadership doesn't start with the market or the mission. It actually starts with reflection. It asks questions like, who are we becoming as the conditions around us change? What do we truly believe about our work, our mission, our purpose, our people? And what can we hold steady in that belief when everything else feels unstable? Because leading when things are clear is one thing. Leading when they're not is something entirely different. This is where patience becomes wisdom, where conviction replaces certainty, where confidence stops being about having every answer and starts being about staying anchored to what's true. The best distillers understand this. They don't force a flavor. They work with the conditions to create something remarkable. And great leaders do the same thing. We can't control the economy, or the market, or even the moment that we're in, but we can control our presence. We can protect our purpose. We can model calm when everything else feels frantic. That's deeper leadership. Less about control, more about conviction. Less about pace, and more about presence. And maybe that's the real invitation of this season. Not to just endure it, but to let it shape us into something wiser, steadier, and more grounded for whatever comes next. When everything around us changes or feels uncertain, the instinct is to fix, to hurry, to regain control. But moments like this don't always call for reaction. Sometimes they call for reflection. They ask us to pause long enough to notice what's true, what's shifting, what's still worth holding on to in our situation, in our organizations, and even within ourselves. So if you are navigating this season of uncertainty, I offer 3 lessons from whiskey making for you to sit with. 1. Revisit what's still true. What parts of your purpose and mission haven't changed, even as everything else has? The world may look different, but your why probably hasn't. Return to the core. Not to cling to the past, but to remember what's worth carrying forward. 2. Redefine what growth means in this season. Not every season will bring explosive growth, and that's okay. Growth might look like stability, or clarity, or deepening what already exists. Ask yourself, what does healthy growth look like right now for my team, for my organization, and for my leadership? Because depth is still growth. It's just measured differently. And the third lesson is refine your posture, not your plan. A new strategy isn't always the answer. Sometimes what's needed is a new stance. How are you showing up in this season? Is your tone, your pace, your energy, are they reflecting panic or are they reflecting purpose? Whiskey doesn't rush the season. It works with it. What would it look like for you to do the same thing? These aren't just reflection points. They're reminders that even uncertainty can be sacred ground for transformation. So let this moment shape something lasting, something that can't be rushed, something that can be trusted. If you've been listening for a while, you know that I like to close each episode with what I call tasting notes. Those are the ideas and inspirations that linger after the pour. Here are my tasting notes for this conversation. The barrel is still good. The vision, the relationships, the purpose behind it all, they still matter. Don't discard them just because the season has changed. Refine them. The seasons shape the depth of what's inside. The shifts, the change, even the chaos, these are what creates depth and character. Let them deepen you, not discourage you. And the good years reveal your gifts. The hard years reveal your soul. The tension you're feeling might not be an ending. It might be the beginning of what you're truly built for. I'm Steve Muscato, and this is Crafted Clarity, where we distill the tension between what we built and what we're built for. Because clarity isn't found, it's crafted. Thanks for listening to Crafted Clarity. If you're a leader wrestling with the tension between success and significance, or you're trying to align your work with a deeper calling, I'd love to connect with you. If your organization is facing questions about strategy, whether it's alignment, ROI, or building confidence in your team, this is the work we do every day at iBrand. And if you walk this journey yourself, or maybe you're right in the middle of it, I'd love to hear your story and maybe even share it here on the podcast. You can find me at craftedclarity.net.